Hello, Star Trek fans. Welcome to ReBinge It. This is the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we are rebinging Star Trek Voyager from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 2, Episode 1, The 37's. This episode aired August 28th, 1995.
Season 2, here we are. Season 1 was so short.
Yeah, well, even Deep Space Nine was a little shorter.
Yeah, it wasn't a full TNG style, what was it, 180 episodes per season back then?
Yeah, 25, 26, something like that.
Man, that was a different age. Now, Fallout's only 8 episodes.
I know. It's almost like everything's just turned into what we used to call a mini-series.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Didn't all miniseries back in the day have to have Richard Chamberlain in them?
I have no idea. I don't think those were the ones I watched.
Oh, okay.
I remember the one that Carol Burnett did called Fresno.
Oh.
It was a comedy miniseries. It was great.
Was it Shogun and Songbirds, and there was one with like the Pope?
But I was way too young for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember them. I just remember the existence of them, but I don't remember what any. I couldn't describe a single one.
Yeah. Oh, I have no idea what they're about. I just know of their existence.
Well, they were big TV events, and everybody would watch them. That's what I would remember.
Oh.
But all right, anything to say about the last episode or the last season? The last episode was Learning Curve that we did with Atiba.
I kind of liked it. It was goofy. It was very much a Trek episode. I mean, it was an odd choice for the end of season, but...
Well, and just to sort of keep going with that theory, this is an odd choice for a season opener, so we're in the odd choices.
Right.
We didn't do a season wrap-up like we've done on our other podcasts, and we decided to do this just as somebody on YouTube asked if we were going to do a mailbag episode. Now I feel bad.
Yeah.
But the month of March was just crazy for us, so we couldn't do it. We didn't record at all in March, and so that put us behind, and we're trying to get caught back up. So maybe we'll do a mailbag episode at some point.
And Voyager's a little different because we've both seen it, and it's not like I'm trying to convince you it's a good show.
No, that's true. Well, we have gotten, I don't know, maybe when we first started, we got quite a bit of email from people, but it's been quiet the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We can reconsider the mailbag episode if we get a sudden influx.
Yes.
Although you don't have to wait for a mailbag episode to interact with us. If you want to send us an email, we will respond. Or if you want to get onto the Facebook group, there's some chatter that goes on there, and we're happy to respond there as well.
As much as it's Facebook, it's quite a good group.
Right. Yeah. Well, we should probably get going since we already know we're behind. So we got to start recording.
Yeah, we're like 10 minutes in and I don't think we actually got to the episode yet.
I think we're confused because we're recording in the morning.
Yeah, my brain doesn't start until,
weird.
About 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, you got a couple hours until then. All right, I've got the notes, so I will get us started. In the cold open, Harry detects rust in space, which Captain Janeway asks how iron would rust in space without oxygen, but Harry has no idea. We follow this trail of rust until we find gasoline, and it's funny here because Chakotay doesn't know what gasoline is, but he knew what Beowulf was. I don't buy it. Back on Voyager, we follow the trail of gasoline, and weren't you thinking, oh good, we've actually now managed to pollute the Delta Quadrant with gasoline somehow.
Humans, it's what we're good at. Let's face it.
We really are good at just ruining everything. But after following this trail, we detect an object, and when we put the object on screen, we see it's an old red pickup truck.
Yep.
Janeway looks absolutely shocked, and we go into the opening credits.
That was a very odd Star Trek opening.
It really was. It would have been even stranger if there was a person in the truck, but there wasn't.
That would have been funny.
And they waved.
Yeah.
Oh, hi. And then we found that the whole thing was a simulation. Oh my gosh, we missed a trick. That would have been entertaining. Like that one episode of Deep Space Nine where Nog was in a simulation, remember? And Jake just walked right in and knocked on the window. Do you remember?
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, we could have done something like that. Well, now we have this 1936 red Ford pickup truck in the cargo bay.
Yep.
Tom recognizes it because ancient vehicles are a hobby of his, of course.
Right. Everybody else seems to be completely surprised by what this thing is. Going back to your point, they know what Beowulf is, but they don't know about modes of transport in previous centuries.
Yeah, you'd think you might have seen some pictures. Yeah.
Right.
Or, any of the holodeck programs that go back in time, and we would see so many of them do that. So it is funny that they'd be like, what is this thing?
Yeah, I have no idea what it is.
Harry asks if it's an early hover car. No, dude.
If you show them a picture of a horse and cart, would it completely blow their minds?
Yeah, they'd say,
what is it?
Is this a hover cart? Is this a hover horse? Anyway, the truck smells of horse manure, and there's mud on the wheels, and of course, we're all wondering how this got here.
Yep.
It's a good question. Janeway and B'Elanna start analyzing the truck while Tom gets in and manages to start it up.
And here we see, this episode is sponsored by the Ford Motor Co. You can leave a truck in space for 400 years, and not only is the battery still fully intact, also the gasoline works.
I don't know how... I'm not like Tom, I don't study ancient vehicles, but haven't vehicles always had a battery of some kind?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, certainly...
Or, no, they used to have the cranks.
Yeah, but that was only for the starter motor, though.
Oh, okay. See, I don't know anything about it. I'm like Harry. Is this a hover car?
This is so ridiculously into the realm of just silly.
Yeah, totally agree, yeah. When he starts it up, it backfires, and that causes everyone to duck and Tuvok to pull out his phaser. I did laugh at that. I thought that was quite funny. And then Tom turns on the AM radio and starts tuning the dial when he hears some beeping, which B'Elanna identifies as an ancient Earth distress call. That's right, there's an SOS.
And what would have been at the time a valve radio that's been in the absolute freezing conditions of space and still works, along with the battery and the gasoline. This episode has just dialed it up to 11 on the silly scale.
Yeah, this truck is ridiculous.
This episode is sponsored by Ford.
Well, now we head to the bridge where Harry identifies the source of the SOS signal, which we follow to a nearby Class L planet. Naturally, there is some kind of interference stopping us from scanning the surface, beaming down, or sending down a shuttle.
Yep.
Harry calls it like trinimbic interference, I think.
Yep. Trinimbic turbulence. I think that's the first time we've heard that.
Yeah, that was new to me. So naturally, Janeway says, oh, let's land the whole ship and see what's going on down there.
Oh, you've got to love that. This is pure Janeway.
Oh,
We've never done this before. Tom's never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
Janeway's in charge. Woohoo, we're going to land. Love it.
What if that trinimbic interference ends up damaging your ship and you can't take off again? I mean, remember the cloud? It's like, we should at least try something, run some simulations. Nope, we're just going to land. Tom's never done it before. We don't have time to watch a YouTube video. We're just going to go down.
Tom's actually searching YouTube for how to land.
I mean, it's funny. He looks worried, but no big deal. Janeway's totally unperturbed. She calls B'Elanna and tells her, oh, we're going to land the ship. And for some reason, B'Elanna doesn't say, I'm sorry, what?
Have you done this before?
We're doing what now?
This, I think, is, again, another one of those pieces of Janeway where it's a throwback to TOS.
Oh, yeah.
They're going for that captain who's like, I'm going to jump in with both feet and plan. Oh, yeah, I'll plan when I get there.
I suppose it's boring to watch what you really should do.
Yeah.
But it is quite funny.
Yeah, Picard would be getting Geordi and Data to do an analysis and work out how they can get down to the planet. Although I don't know if the Enterprise can actually land on a planet. Although Deanna did it once.
Yes, by accident. There was a whole thing on TNG about the saucer section separating out from the ship.
Yeah.
And they did it, I don't know, once. They talked about it, but they didn't do it frequently because it was an expensive effect.
Yeah.
So I imagine we're landing this ship to show Voyager is different.
Yeah.
It's smaller and it can land.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's the whole reason we're doing it is just to show that we can. But it seems so crazy in the conversation. And we don't even make a big deal about it. It's like, no biggie. I'm sure everything will be fine.
I think, like you said, it's the interest and the excitement factor. It's we could go the TNG route and do a 20-minute, how do we land this ship?
Yeah.
Or we literally just jump in with, Voyager can land on the planet.
Yep, here we go. We go to code blue, which means everything goes dark, and we have a long landing sequence with a little turbulence, but everything just seems to work out just fine. And down on the planet, we split into two teams, one to investigate a potential power source reading and one in search of the SOS signal. Janeway, Tuvok, and Harry come across an old-time airplane with propellers where they find the source of the SOS.
Oh, I can't believe you didn't dwell on the awesome Voyager landing sequence. And it has feet. Voyager puts down feet and lands.
Well, they do the same thing on Prodigy, so I do feel like I just watched that.
Oh, that's my note here. Of it's very reminiscent of Voyager 2, a.k.a. Prodigy.
Yes.
I just love seeing Voyager. It really is my second favorite ship after the Protostar.
Although they very clearly do not show you all of Voyager on the planet. You just see the little landing gear coming down, and then you see the front of the ship, and the rest of it is blocked by these rocks.
Yes.
So I guess we didn't have enough money or something for the rest of it.
It's the static painting.
Yeah, and they show that multiple times.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's the cost of the effects.
Right.
Voyager would be right in that spot where these effects would be expensive.
Yeah. And down on the planet, we split into two teams, one to investigate a potential power source reading and one in search of the SOS signal. Janeway, Tuvok, and Harry come across an old-time airplane with propellers where they find the source of the SOS. Janeway makes a comment here about not believing that the battery on this plane could still be powering that SOS signal after 400 years, but nobody questioned the battery on the truck, so it's sort of funny we brought it up here.
I did like that they actually addressed that here.
Yeah.
That it had like a fusion device. That alien fusion device that was powering it.
Yeah, Harry finds this alien device is hooked up somehow to the plane.
Yeah. And did you notice this planet looks remarkably like Southern California too?
Yes, once again, it does seem that we're in Southern California. Everything's quite dry. And in fact, some of the plant life that they push their way through is at the top of our street. And there's somebody put a cardboard sign. I don't know if you saw this because you don't walk as much as I do. Somebody put a cardboard sign that said, HOA, these are weeds. Did you see that? And it's the same things that Janeway's pushing through in this episode.
You know what I'm most impressed about in this scene?
Yeah.
And I guess it's probably because it's Southern California, so it never rains, is how the aluminum is all perfectly intact.
Again, after 400 years.
Yeah.
Well, we find out later that they worked hard to maintain that signal, so it's maybe somebody's job to keep that ship clean and, in good condition.
Oh, true.
Preserve it.
I would have built a hangar around it or something if it was important.
Yeah, that's actually interesting that they didn't try to move it or put it in a museum or, rope it off, right? They talk about everything here being a sacred space, but nothing's protected. Anyway, we haven't got there yet. We're jumping ahead. Chakotay finds a mine shaft where the power source seems to be located. He wants some security backup. Finally, a good idea. Janeway agrees and says she'll join them. She leaves Harry and Tuvok to investigate the alien battery. When she runs off, we briefly get a shot of some letters and numbers on the wing of the plane. And if you'd stopped to look that up, you would have known what we were about to find. But, in 1995, you couldn't have Googled it, so I guess you would have had to go to the library. And by then, the show would have been over. You'd have missed the whole thing.
You probably would have gone to Alta Vista to search for it.
In 1995?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, could have been. But even the things you were finding on the internet, I mean, there wasn't a lot. There were some things, but there wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
But we also see, at this point, an ominous figure at the top of the hill watching them. We can't tell what kind of alien it is, as the individual is completely covered in sort of a black rubber outfit with a full head covering that looks very hot and uncomfortable for Southern California.
Oh, yeah. You're dying of heat stroke in 10 minutes.
Definitely.
That is not a cosplay outfit for Comic-Con.
No, none of it. Down in the cave now, we locate a fusion-based power signature, and we find a room with 8 cryo-stasis chambers. Janeway wipes the front of one of them and is shocked to see a human man inside. Chakotay says there are other rooms with chambers, but only the ones in this room are alive. They clean off a couple more of the chambers, and Janeway eventually finds who we knew we were going to find, Amelia Earhart. And we have a big dramatic ad break.
Yes.
It's so funny because she spells out the last name. It's like, just read it. It's like E-A. What are we doing?
It's on the badge. You could just read it.
Just read it. That did not help with the drama. That was silly. Now we go to a conference room on Voyager to get a history lesson about Amelia Earhart.
Yep.
And it's funny to see blue sky outside of the conference room window because that's not normally what you see.
Yeah.
Janeway tells everyone the story about Amelia Earhart disappearing with her navigator in 1937. And when she disappeared, there were many theories about her disappearance. And since they never found the plane, some people thought she'd been abducted by aliens.
They mustn't have got the memo in the future about the plane.
The memo about how they found it, or they think they found it now in 2024. You know, in the same way, when we did that Jetrel episode, we were talking about the movie Oppenheimer. And now it's funny that we're talking here about Amelia Earhart when it's in the news that they may have found her plane.
Yeah.
Although at the time of this recording, they're still not sure.
Yeah,
but it is interesting.
Oh, yeah. I need to go back and look at that. That would be really amazing.
No, I like to believe she was abducted by aliens.
That's a very positive spin.
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Seems like all of the people in the chambers were taken in the 1930s, and the crew is wondering why anyone would do this, and where are the aliens anyway? And Janeway says, well, maybe they'll turn up. Tom suggests maybe we wake up the frozen people and ask them what happened. And Janeway, of course, really wants to do this. She says, we have to be careful about how we wake them up.
There's an interesting thing here. This kind of goes to show that nobody has read the after-action report from Space Seed.
Well, I feel like we talked about that somewhere along the line, too. Like, nobody's writing these reports and nobody's reading these reports. And didn't they also try to cover up the...
That's one of the theories, that Kirk never reported this to Starfleet and where he put them.
Because we talked about that in the podcast we did with Atiba and his brother.
Yeah.
Teebs and Kid Phoenix, where it seemed like nobody knew about what Kirk had done with Khan.
Right.
So no, they probably never did read the reports.
Yeah, so Janeway doesn't know. You don't wake people up who are in deep cryosleep because nothing good comes from it.
No, and it's also funny because she makes a point of saying we have to be so careful. And then we are most definitely not careful. We wake everybody up at once. We're completely unprepared for what happens.
Yeah.
The only thing we do is Chakotay says we should make sure there's only humans in the room, when we do it. But there's mostly only humans anyway on the ship. So all we do is cover up Kess's ears. That's the only measure that we take to be cautious. And we open them all up at the same time.
Well, and the funny thing is, the Klingon, B'Elanna, is the only reasonable one there. She's the most cautious.
That is funny, yes. The Klingon is the cautious one.
But I will defend Janeway, and her theory here is they want to find out more about the aliens who abducted these people or brought them there, because if they can make it all the way to Earth, it could help Voyager get home faster. So her theory is good.
I 100% agree that her theory is right. Even the reason for landing, for taking the risk, totally valid. But we've done two things. We've looked in a cave and we found an airplane. If we had only hiked around a little bit because our sensors weren't working, apparently there are 3 cities very nearby that we could have found. But nope, we're not going to do that. We're just going to wake these people up and just go with it.
Yeah, maybe put up a few drones and actually survey the area. Oh, wait a minute. Drones hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah. There's a couple of times in this episode where I think, boy, some drones would have been helpful.
Right.
Or even the dots from Discovery, something. But we didn't know about those yet in the 90s.
Yeah.
So we're just going to wake everybody up all at once.
Although there is a disclaimer here. Harry says all the units' power sources are linked, so they can only do them all at once.
Yes, but then you know what we could have done is we could have had one person at each chamber to sort of handle each person individually, check and see if anyone was armed. We did see that the soldier was armed because his gun was right at the front, so we took that. But we didn't do anything else. We're just going to hope for the best.
Wave a hand.
And that's crazy. It's also funny that everybody is standing in these chambers instead of in Space Seed, they were all lying down, which made more sense because now when they wake them up with a hypospray, they're all immediately fine. They're awake. I think one of them sways a little bit and then that's it. They can walk, they can talk. Everything's totally fine.
Personally, what I would have done is when they defrosted them and opened the doors, I would have had them all fall out simultaneously.
That would have made more sense. Nothing was holding them up. I don't know, it was very strange. The whole thing was very strange. Amelia Earhart, with her very teased 80s hair, by the way, not 30s, she wakes up first, and Janeway dramatically approaches her out of the darkness and smiles as we go into another ad break. Now everyone is awake and apparently just fine. And of course, the most obnoxious person is the white American guy in a suit and tie. I don't quite understand why the navigator was wearing a suit and tie. Maybe that was correct, but it seems weird.
Yeah.
So this guy is annoyed and he starts yelling. And the Japanese guy is surprised everyone is speaking Japanese. So Janeway tries to explain the universal translators, making it seem like they're speaking the same language.
I thought the farmer should have said, "Where's my truck?"
Oh my God, that would have been very funny. I wonder if they gave him his truck back. They should have.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. The guy in the suit starts threatening to tell the world about what these people have done. And Amelia's like, Fred, shut up. So apparently this guy's name is Fred. Janeway tries to explain the situation, asking if they remember what happened to them, and Amelia describes seeing a huge light behind them and the plane stopping in midair.
Yep.
The others had a similar experience. Janeway says, if we can learn how you got here, maybe we can all get back to Earth. Fred has had it with his alien talk, and he pulls out a gun, and he points it at Janeway. They disarm the Starfleet personnel, which is absolutely ridiculous. You're all armed. Somebody stun this idiot.
Right. And they even had the phasers pointing at him.
Yeah, just shoot him. I don't understand.
Did Janeway set out really bad rules of engagement? Don't stun him until he shoots someone.
We didn't talk about it. We had no plan.
That is a little bit kooky. And
yeah. Janeway just tries to keep everyone calm, knowing, she still has the upper hand because she still has her communicator and she still has the whole crew outside. Chakotay calls at that moment saying they've picked up some energy displacements on the surface and someone is using some kind of deflection system to trick Voyager's sensors. So see, there is something out there. Fred now starts ranting, saying he's got a gun pointed at Janeway's head, and he wants to call Washington and talk to J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah, he wants him on the phone.
And so Janeway says to Chakotay, we're being held hostage, and I suggest you pay attention to what this gentleman says. This sends Tuvok and Chakotay into action, and they immediately get in the turbolift and call for a security detail.
They're handing out the guns.
Janeway continues trying to talk to Earhart, showing Kess's ears to try to prove her point, but funny ears aren't enough to convince her.
So she's dressed as an elf. What's the big deal?
Yeah, big deal. I see that every year at Halloween.
Yeah.
You probably should have brought Neelix. He definitely looks a bit weird, but...
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
But that's fine. I'm happy he's not in this scene.
Yeah, Fred could have got a chance to shoot him.
No. Anyway, Amelia says something about Martians haven't invaded the Earth, but Harry says, it was the other way around when humans colonized Mars in 2103.
I like that. That was actually pretty funny. It's also, I thought, wonderfully in tune with Harry.
Yes.
It seems like the kind of thing Harry would say.
Yeah.
Because he's always so sort of upbeat. It works well.
Well, Fred's heard enough, and he tells everyone to sit down, but Earhart and Janeway keep looking sort of longingly at each other. It's very funny. Back in the cargo bay, everyone is arming up and they're making a plan to get into the caves and save the crew. But we are not moving very quickly. I mean, come on, people. Now in the cave, Fred is boozing it up from a flask he had in his pocket.
I feel this is rather unfair to Fred Noonan. There was no real proof he had an alcohol problem. And this is, again, one of those bordering on myths. Other than he did have a DUI, there's no other contemporary evidence that the guy had a drinking problem.
Well, it's not super slanderous, I would say, in this scene. He just happens to have a flask in his pocket. It's probably nerve-wracking being in those little bouncy airplanes.
Well, the implication he has an alcohol problem, and I feel that's being unfair to the historical character.
Yeah, there's definitely that implication. Of all the things in this episode, that's the thing you're concerned about, which is quite funny.
Well, there's more.
Oh, okay. You got more sticky notes?
Yeah.
Okay. Tom figures they can tackle Fred and get the gun, but Janeway takes a different tactic.
Oh, this is very Picard.
Yes. She keeps talking directly to Earhart, saying that she was an inspiration to generations of women, including herself. Amelia asks what Janeway is the captain of, then she laughs at the thought of it being a starship. Janeway offers to show her the ship.
Yep.
Amelia is suspicious, but Janeway keeps working on her, telling her that there were rumors that she was working for the government when she disappeared, trying to gather information about the Japanese. Amelia Earhart is like, where did you hear that? And Janeway says, it's common knowledge now. It's her story is part of history.
Oh, so they go into another Earhart conspiracy theory of her being a covert government operative. There's zero proof for this, apparently, but it's not important if you're going to roll out all the conspiracy theories.
This is part of the problem with this episode is we didn't have to lean this hard into these characters. We didn't have to bring them to life.
Right.
They could have been a part of this without this little thing that we're doing, but...
Yeah, and you didn't need to bring up mythology and historical speculation. I feel that's kind of cheap.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to get it onto President Roosevelt conspiring with the Japanese to launch the attack on Pearl Harbor. They seem to be embracing conspiracy theory, so let's go for the really stupid ones.
Okay. Fred is also getting more animated, just like James. And he threatens to put them all into the chambers and freeze them. He grabs Janeway and tells her to show him how to operate the chambers. But Amelia, at this point, finally disarms the drunk Fred. I mean, it's always great having drunks with guns.
Yes, what could possibly go wrong?
She says that she wants to see the ship. The farmer dude, Fred, and Amelia all agree to go to Voyager and have a look. Everyone else stays behind.
Yep.
Meanwhile, up on the surface, the slowest rescue team in history is finally on the move. I mean, the whole thing is over and now they're finally outside. Unfortunately, on their way to the cave, there are now 3 aliens in black rubber suits up on the ridge, and they start shooting at the rescue team and pin them down really quickly behind some rocks.
I think it's because they interrupted a leather fetish festival.
I mean, those outfits are ridiculous.
They are a little bit...
They are a little bit Season 1 Deep Space Nine is what they are.
Oh...
And we haven't even seen the worst of it yet. Until we see their faces, it's ridiculous.
I was looking for the stuck on tinfoil.
Janeway and the group come out of the cave and hear the shooting. Fred immediately gets shot in the chest. Janeway gets a view of the situation and tells Chakotay and Tuvok to cover her as she's going to try and sneak around behind the shooters and surprise them.
And in another nod to Deep Space Nine, the large rock that Tuvok and Chakotay are hiding behind at 2820 in the episode, it wobbles when one of them bashes into it.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Classic.
This is that other time where some drones would be quite useful.
Right.
It's comical now to think about how low-tech some of these shows are.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Not to worry, though. Janeway sneaks up behind the shooters, takes care of the situation on her own, and now one of the guys in the rubber suits, by the way, now we see their faces. There is absolutely no way they can see anything out of the front of those. There's a little tiny rectangular slit at the top intended to be the eye holes, but they're not wide enough.
Oh,
There's
okay.
no way they can see.
We can talk our way through this one. That little slit is the visor, and they have sensing technology. So they've actually got like a heads-up display kind of thing.
Uh-huh. No, it's a slit cut in some rubber. They must have been absolutely dying in there.
Well, what's funny is when they pull the helmets off, and they have like perfect hair.
Oh, yeah.
And,
They stop to tease the woman's hair.
You would be drenched with sweat after like 2 minutes in one of those.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, one of the guys says, "You're not Briori." And Janeway says, "No, I'm human." And then they pull off their rubber masks and reveal they are also human.
With perfect hair.
And then he accuses her of working with the Briori. We still don't know who that is. And Janeway tells him to chill out and says, "Let's attend to the wounded and argue about this later." She's like, "We're all humans. Seems like we can talk to each other."
Yep.
So the 2 aliens who took their headgear off are John and Karen. Like the most...
generic names ever.
Although it was spelled on the closed caption Karyn, which I thought was funny. It's like, oh, they're aliens. They spell it with a Y.
Ah, yes. Well, yeah, it's future names, right?
We never learn the name of the guy that Janeway stunned. In fact, we never see anyone but John from here. He's the only person representing this colony.
They spent a lot of money on that Voyager effect. We've got to keep the extras to a minimum.
I'm afraid so. On Voyager now, the doctor diagnoses Fred's injury as severe trauma to the thoracic cavity, including a lacerated carotid artery. Sounds pretty serious.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like he should have lasted that long.
Right? Amelia says he's not going to make it, but the doctor isn't as pessimistic, of course. He starts using a regenerator on Fred's injury, but he says the alcohol level in Fred's blood is so high it's inhibiting the repair to his circulatory system.
More jokes about unfounded drunk allegations?
So the doc says he'll attempt to compensate. Fred figures he's going to die anyway, so he tells Amelia he needs to tell her something, and he says he loves her.
So it turns into a love story.
Kind of. I mean, kind of. I do like here when he says, "Doc, just let me die in peace," and the doctor rolls his eyes. That's quite funny.
Yeah.
After his deathbed confession, the doctor says he's healed, and then Fred backtracks on his confession. And suddenly, Amelia Earhart has a southern accent in this scene, which she has not had for the other 30 minutes of this episode.
It could be it comes out with stress.
Maybe.
Remember that guy I used to work with who had a very flat accent, and then the one time he got really upset at some contractors?
The New Jersey came out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Really strong. It was so funny.
Now in the conference room, rubber suit guy, John, is yelling at the Voyager crew for taking the 37's. He says they disturbed a shrine and stole them from the sacred altars, and they even disturbed the radio signal that his people had worked so hard to preserve.
Monuments to their ancestors. The shrine.
Janeway asks if he's one of the 37's, but he says he's a descendant. The 37's were brought here over 15 generations ago by the Briori, an alien race that abducted over 300 people and turned them into slaves. He says those people revolted, killed the Briori, and took their technology and survived. And now there are over 100,000 of them. He says the Briori never came back. I find this hard to believe that they had the technology to take people from another planet, bring them here, turn them into slaves.
In a different quadrant.
Yeah. Anyway, maybe that trinimbic interference somehow. Maybe that wasn't there the whole time. And
I have some overanalysis on this.
Okay. Finally, Janeway says, "We didn't steal the 37, we revived them." He's shocked to learn they're alive. But of course, there's only like 8 of them, not 37. We don't ever talk about the fact that the rest of them are dead.
Well, the 37 was the year they were taken.
Oh, I thought it was because there were other chambers that were empty. I see. The 37s meant the year. Okay.
Right.
Well, I missed that. That went right over my head. Janeway explains that the only reason they came was to search for the ship the aliens used to abduct the humans and hopefully get back to Earth faster. But turns out that ship was destroyed in the slave revolt. This depresses Janeway and Chakotay, of course.
Any of the technology survive?
Something.
Yeah.
John says he's sorry to upset her, but life on this planet is good. He goes from yelling at them to saying, "We live in 3 beautiful cities, only 50 miles from here," and he offers to show her the cities.
If you had flown around a bit, you would have seen them.
The transition from him yelling to saying, "Oh, come look at our awesome cities," is super clunky in this scene.
It's also pretty funny that Janeway and Chakotay don't have any worries or issues now, having disturbed one of their sacred sites and woken up what is a cultural touchstone for these people.
Well, we're not worried about that because they're humans. We cared so much about that asteroid that had the dead bodies. We don't care about this.
You've just maybe ruined an aspect of these people's religious faith. Do we get an indication it's faith, or is this just historical reverence for something from the past?
There's no indication that it's religious, no.
Yeah. I mean, they use the phrase shrine, but you could use that in a non...
Yeah, you could have a shrine to soldiers who fall in battle, things like that. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's a god of some kind.
Right.
It's just part of the weird nature of this entire episode.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, on the bridge, Amelia Earhart is learning about flying Voyager, and Tom tells her that its top speed is about 4 billion miles a second.
Interesting fact here, reading up on some of the Star Trek wikis, the actual speed of warp varies between the shows, episodes, and even the destinations you're going to.
Nice. That does not surprise me in the slightest.
Somebody put together this great little table showing the references of, which shows that reference how fast it is, and it's all over the place.
Well, there were so many times in the Deep Space Nine podcast where we would talk about it would take days to get somewhere, and then in an episode when that was inconvenient, you'd get there right away.
It would take 6 weeks to get to Earth, and they're on Earth.
Unless we don't have 6 weeks. Then we could get there as quickly as we need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Janeway and the rubber suit guy enter the bridge, saying the crew will be allowed to visit these amazing cities. And John, at this point, the rubber suit guy, is shocked to meet one of the 37s, and he shakes Amelia's hand.
That would be kind of cool. I mean, if you'd had these characters that you'd grown up with, if these were maybe heroes or a piece of history, something that was the foundation of your society, and these were the last people in existence who pointed back to that. And it turns out that not only are they fine, they're alive.
Yeah.
And you get to meet one.
Well, now Janeway tells us how great the cities were, but we get absolutely no view of them whatsoever.
That cracked me up.
Yeah.
They really did blow all the effects budget.
Yeah. They did not want to deal with whether or not there were actually skyscrapers and buildings, and they wanted to walk around real streets. They didn't want to do that at all. They didn't want to show them like living in tents like we normally see on Star Trek with people. They didn't want to show any of that.
Dressed like medieval peasants.
Exactly. Instead, we just say, oh, they were amazing.
I would have thought, even doing like a matte painting, Janeway and this guy standing on a hillside looking down, seeing the 3 cities.
You could even do something cheaper. You could go just to a park. Or you could show kids playing in a park, playing some kind of a sport.
Right.
And just say, wow, isn't this idyllic? But no, we didn't do anything. We just said we have these 3 amazing cities. Life here is great. And then the very next scene, Janeway's like, wow, yeah, those cities were great. It's so funny.
Wow, that was great.
Oh,
this episode is so strange.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Well, she's sitting staring out the window saying the tours of the cities has left her a little disturbed.
Yeah.
When Chakotay asks what's wrong, she says, there's a thriving, sophisticated culture on this planet. We're just going to take your word for it. A planet of human beings. And in some ways, walking around those cities was like being back on Earth.
Yeah.
She says Rubber Suit Guy John has extended an invitation for anyone who wants to stay. And Janeway wonders if this is one of those times the captain has to make the decision for everyone. She says she can't take a vote every time there's a major decision to be made, but not all of the regulations and rules make sense out here, which is very true.
Is this the start of Janeway, almost like Sisko, becoming the captain. The needs of the moment are what's important, not necessarily following the rules.
I do think everything that happens from here is, A, the best part of the episode, and really critical for character development of Janeway.
Yes.
I don't know what happens in the next episode or from here, but this conversation and the rest of the episode is very important.
Agreed.
Well, she wonders if she's the only one who wants to keep trying to get home. She wonders if she's leading the crew on a forlorn mission with no real hope of success.
God, this was great.
I had this in capital letters. It's funny what you just asked. I wrote, this is what this episode should be about. That exact sentence right there.
This is just great.
Agreed. We went from such a weird episode to this conversation, which is amazing.
This is an amazing dilemma for the captain.
Agreed. Chakotay says she's not alone. It's tempting to stay, but he'd rather go home. There are 152 people on the ship, and we can't operate the ship with less than 100 people, so they're concerned if too many people decide to stay, they'll be stranded. But Janeway still thinks everyone deserves to make the choice for themselves.
Okay, I feel I need to leap into overanalysis here.
Okay.
So we need 100 people to operate the ship, and a lot of people potentially could stay, and this is her dilemma, or their dilemma. How about people on that planet, which is technologically sophisticated, who would want to go with them or would volunteer to see their original homeworld of humans?
Well, I thought about that too, but there's no guarantee they're going to make it back.
Right.
And there's no guarantee that in their lifetime that they'll make it back.
There's no guarantee anybody survives in Starfleet.
I do think it would have been a good idea to have said they also offered that to the people. I mean, they couldn't have taken all 100,000 of them.
But maybe there's 100 people.
And maybe they did that and cut it because that didn't have anything to do with the captain's journey.
True. But I think from a writing perspective, I think you could set a really interesting perspective if there were people in that world of 100,000 who wanted to go and see Earth.
Yeah. Well,
it seems like a missed opportunity to me.
I would say two things. One, we could have leaned into that if we hadn't wasted our time with the Amelia Earhart stuff.
Right.
If we had focused this episode on something else, we could have thrown that in there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say about it is I'm serious when I say that this is about Janeway's journey from here, at least to me. And that almost would have confused it. Now we're going to put people on here onto Voyager who not only have they never been trained in Starfleet, they haven't even lived in that world. And it could be quite a distraction. Now you're taking care of people. But I see your point. Yeah.
I get what you mean. But I think there would be the potential. Wouldn't you want to allow some people to join Starfleet in this manner as a human colony?
And what's his name? Tuvok could just keep giving more training. He did it last episode. He could just train some new people.
Right.
There just wasn't time because we spent so much time in that stupid cryo chamber.
And with the stupid truck.
Oh, yeah. We wasted a whole scene with the stupid truck. Yeah, that is true.
Well, again, and Tuvok's Starfleet training would probably work because they would people who would want to be there.
Yeah. Well, now we go to the mess hall, and Neelix presents the visiting humans with pot roast, green beans, and Jell-O. And he gives fish and rice to the Japanese soldier. So that was quite nice. I thought that he tailored the food for the individuals.
Yes.
The farmer, who I guess it's the guy whose truck must have been the one in the cargo bay, announces that he wants to stay on this planet and farm the land. The soldier also wants to stay.
And the farmer says, "Can I get my truck back?"
I hope they did give his truck back, but they might not have fuel. Well, Fred thinks it looks better here than back on Earth. I'm not sure why. Well, maybe because it's Southern California. Amelia asks Neelix if he's made his decision, and Neelix says, he's staying with Captain Janeway. He says, she depends on me a great deal. Yeah. He says he has no idea how many people will actually stay. At another table, Harry tells B'Elanna that he understands why people would want to stay. It really reminds him of home, and he's not sure he's prepared to spend his entire life on a starship just trying to get home.
But wouldn't you, if you were a true believer in Starfleet and exploration, you'd be looking at that anyway? I mean, these people have extended lifespans, so wouldn't you be looking at the next 50 years living on a starship?
Well, but only in missions. You would still have opportunities to go home. And also you would have opportunities to meet other humans or other people who you could build a life with.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have that opportunity on this ship.
And I suppose he could change career at any point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can kind of see his point there.
I mean, in the end, he doesn't choose to stay.
Yeah.
But what he's saying is that he could understand if somebody really did decide to stay.
Yeah. I guess it's the thing of the difference with, Picard was a space monk at the end of the day.
Yeah, he was more comfortable in space than he was with people.
Yeah. And someone like Kirk...
Well, he was a cowboy, and it was a cowboy mission.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I get it. For some people, it would work, yes. And for Harry, who's young and doesn't have a lot of experience, it would seem a little bit like a sentence rather than a mission.
Maybe, yeah. We're also just speculating here and having conversations about it. People will say a lot of things, but still just go into their comfort zone.
Yeah.
B'Elanna is surprised like we are to hear this from Harry and says a lot of people are thinking about staying. Outside, Amelia finds Janeway. She says the humans who are in stasis have decided to stay on the planet. She was tempted to travel through space, but after talking about it for quite some time, she realizes that she feels closer to the humans on the planet than to the ones on the ship.
Yeah.
Janeway understands, although I'm not sure I understand because all we've seen of this planet is this stupid cave in this one little section with the rocks right outside of Voyager. Janeway tells Amelia that in 30 minutes, anyone who wants to stay is supposed to report to the cargo bay. She doesn't know how many people she's going to lose.
That was very interesting. So something I want to talk about here.
Yeah.
Amelia says she feels closer to these humans on the planet than she does on the ship. And Janeway goes on to say about how the humans here basically followed a similar societal path as the humans on Earth. They've ended up with a society without any of the isms that are a problem. And it sounds like they're embracing the same moral and ethical codes and ways of behavior that are on Earth. So basically parallel evolution, what people should be in an idealized form. She's from the 1930s. How is she going to have anything in common with the people of this more advanced society?
Well, she's not going to have anything in common with either of the groups of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Except maybe for the sort of explorer nature of Janeway and Tom on the bridge.
Right. I would think she would be more in line with the people of Voyager than the planet.
This brings up interesting things when you try to think about it, even though the episode itself is quite goofy. From the standpoint of, again, they're probably not going to make it back to Earth, right? When they, looking at it from this point of view that they're at, yes, we're still optimistic. We're only in season 2.
Yeah.
But there's a good chance they're never going to get back. And she was quite an explorer in her time. Does she want to spend it on the ship? I don't know. She's got a whole planet here to explore.
True.
She doesn't know about life in space.
Yeah.
It's asking a lot of somebody from the 30s, I guess, to make this decision in this moment. I do think it's interesting to think about the evolution of these people in terms of all of the different races evolved together.
Yes.
So they weren't spread out in different countries where they didn't get to meet each other and then they start conquering each other's land. It didn't start that way.
Yeah.
So they're almost implying that because they were all together in the beginning and evolved together, that it sped up the track to get to this point where we had managed to get rid of racism and the need for capitalism and all of the other
isms
things that, all the other isms. And I just think that's really interesting. Again, we didn't really lean into that, but that's the implication, and which I don't know, it's kind of a Star Trek-y thing.
And potentially the struggle that united them to free themselves of this alien race. So
Exactly. I'm sure as they build more and more cities, they'll eventually learn to hate each other.
Yeah, City 4, they're all jerks. We don't deal with them.
How we hate that fourth city.
Yeah.
Back to Voyager, Janeway and Chakotay are walking to the cargo bay discussing a few people they are sure will stay, including some Maquis and some Starfleet.
Yeah.
Janeway is clearly really worried about how many people she's about to lose.
Yes.
She says she doesn't want to lose anyone, but she wouldn't blame people for wanting to stay.
What a good captain.
They dramatically pause before entering the cargo bay, and Chakotay puts his hand on her shoulder and says, no matter what happens, we'll make it.
Okay. I really like that from Chakotay. Even if this isn't necessarily exactly how he really feels, that was a great level of support from a first officer.
Absolutely. That's what you have to do for each other in that moment.
And I thought it was interesting that it was him and not Tuvok in this situation. Oh,
it wouldn't have been the same if it had been Tuvok. Yeah, they made the right choice.
I mean, I think it was interesting. Chakotay was knowing that what she needed in that moment was almost the emotional support of a captain.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this before, but this is the right officer for this move because the first officer is responsible for the crew.
Right.
So it wouldn't have been right if it had been Tuvok.
Yeah.
But yes, I think he did the right thing in that moment, for sure, because he sees that she's uncertain and uncomfortable right now.
Maybe this is going out on a limb, but I might see Chakotay a little bit more of forcing the rule of everybody stays or nobody stays.
What do you mean?
Well, when Janeway said, is this something that the captain has to make the decision for everyone? I think I would maybe see Chakotay being the one who would make that decision for everyone and saying, look, unless the entire crew wants to stay, we're all going.
Yeah, interesting. I don't have anything really in my leadership corner, spoiler alert. But now that you say that, one of the things that I try to do is I want to make a place where people want to be there. And I kind of relate to Janeway in this way. We talked about this a long time ago where I was looking forward to how I would now relate with the different experiences that I've had to this character. That I always thought that I was a little bit Janeway-like. I'm not sure that I am. I'm certainly not as rash as she is. But in this moment, she has spent a lot of time trying to make Voyager a place where everybody felt comfortable. The Maquis, but also the Starfleet people. And not just comfortable, but they want to be there. They want to be on this mission. They want to work together to get home. And now she's having a bit of a crisis because she's concerned that maybe what she's doing isn't working. And you don't always know that as a leader, especially somebody who is this sort of far away from the individuals. You don't know what the people are thinking. All you do is kind of give a lot of speeches. So I can really relate to that moment where she's like, oh my God, I'm going to walk in here and I'm going to find out that nobody's on my side. Everybody really wants off this ship. And so I really get that. From her point of view, the right leadership thing to do is to allow people to make this decision for themselves. And you hope that what you have done has led to them making the decision that you want them to make. But if you force them into it, you're changing the culture. So I do get what she wants to do, and I also get why she's terrified.
And I feel that Chakotay would be the opposite.
Well, because Chakotay's a crappy leader. And he's brain dead. Don't forget, he was declared brain dead a couple episodes ago.
Oh, right. Yeah.
All right. Here comes the moment. They enter the cargo bay. And of course, the camera starts off looking at the two of them as they walk in. And then it sweeps around and the cargo bay is absolutely empty. And nobody wants to stay behind. And damn it, if the look on Janeway's face didn't make me just burst into tears.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Chakotay just stands there looking smug like always. But gosh, she's good. That just absolutely got me.
That was such a good scene. I like the build up to it. And then boom.
Well, and I think I was emotionally entwined in it for those leadership reasons. I think it just really tugged at a lot of things inside of me. And it was such a good moving moment. And she played it so beautifully.
Well, what's not revealed in this scene is Tuvok, being the one who always needs of the many, has told everyone it was actually in a different room.
Yeah, I did actually think about that. I was like, oh, and then we said, oh, we're in the wrong cargo bay. Yeah, that would have been quite funny.
But I could see Tuvok being devious there and telling everyone deliberately.
No, that'd be more like a Tom joke or something.
Remember, Tuvok has gone behind her back before.
But to what end? He wouldn't do it for humor.
No, to maintain the mission to get home.
Oh, he would have lied to everyone. I see what you're saying. Oh, yes. And then he locked them all in that room until they took off and said, oh, too late. You guys are all in the wrong place.
Exactly. It's because the captain couldn't do that. He could.
I get you. Yeah. Okay. That's good. We head back to the bridge where everyone just looks at the captain like, let's go.
And Janeway announces, I'm staying.
Yeah. What's wrong with you guys? I'm getting out of here.
They got dogs here. I'm staying.
Oh, we never saw any pets. We never saw anything. Janeway gives the order to get the ship back up into space. We go to Code Blue again, and she tells Tom to take us up. And outside, Amelia, Fred, and the farmer watch Voyager lift off, and there is still no sign whatsoever of the 100,000 people who supposedly live on this planet. The end. It killed me at the end. Do you have over-analysis?
First of all,
okay.
I really liked that Tuvok brought up they were having difficulty figuring out the operating system of the alien computers. That I thought was good because, yes, if you were presented with this computer system with no other information, it could be very hard to figure out just what it's doing and how it's working. I did like that. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yes, we rarely hear that.
Right. That's where they needed Dax. Remember? They stuck Dax at a terminal and she'd stolen somebody's identity and had a whole thing set up in like no time.
Oh, Dax would have figured it out right away.
Next thing. So bringing people back from the 30s, including a soldier from Imperial Japan, there were a lot of very negative social norms regarding race and gender and such. and you're putting them into this modern society, won't that cause a few problems?
Oh, yes, that would definitely cause the problems. Remember what happened when the guy on Deep Space Nine who came back, Akorum?
Oh, yes. Right.
I mean, he practically ruined everything because he was just like, wait a minute, how come we got away from these traditions that we used to have? It's like, dude, because they were racist and horrible, but he still ended up with a bunch of followers.
That's actually a good segue, bringing up Akorum. I would still love your Church of Akorum. It doesn't matter what happens with Cisco, there's still going to be a Church of Akorum.
100%.
What that leads on to is, are these people seen as people from history, or is it religious reverence to them? I think after we discussed it, I am leaning to... It's a reverence like, people talk about the Founding Fathers or the Magna Carta in the UK, some historical event or people. You don't necessarily consider them religious icons. They're sort of cultural icons.
It's weird, though, that they never tried to revive them if they just thought they were people. One of my main complaints about this episode is we don't know anything. We don't know anything about these cities. We met one guy.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so, I don't know. You'd have to make up a whole thing about it, because...
Like, I wouldn't?
Who knows? I'm sure you would.
Well, I'm going with they're just seen like the Founding Fathers kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're a touchstone back to where they came from.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. This episode is so weird.
And that leads into the next thing, which is the human cities and their level of sophistication and technology.
But we don't know. We never saw a single thing.
They don't appear to be warp capable. They haven't figured out the computers, or they don't seem to do anything with the computers of understanding you can revive these people. And the Federation crew turns up in 10 minutes. They're like, hey, they're cryo chambers. We can defrost them.
But they were able to use the power generators.
Yeah, and they have phasers.
Yeah. Well, they weren't phasers.
They were phasers. They appeared to be phasers.
I think they were guns.
No, they were phasers.
I think they were projectile weapons.
Nope, I'm saying they're phasers.
I do not agree.
Definitely phasers.
Here's our biggest argument we've ever had on this podcast. I think they were just guns.
But we'll go back and watch it and frame by frame through it.
You go right ahead.
Anyway. So they seem to have a relatively high level of technology, but it's odd that they never figure out the computers or didn't defrost these people.
We have no idea what level of technology they have.
Yeah.
We don't know if they have vehicles. We don't know anything. We saw absolutely nothing.
Right.
How are they eating? I don't know. Do they know how to farm? I have no idea. Do they have factories? I don't know. I know nothing.
There's so many questions.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing, the Briori.
Yeah.
So many questions here as well.
Yeah.
They overthrew the Briori.
Yep. Took their weapons.
And nobody came looking to see what happened to this colony?
That's really the hardest part to believe. Unless there were multiple colonies and the other ones were fine. And so they just went, oh, that one's a problem. We just leave it. Who cares?
I have some headcanon here.
Yeah.
First one. Was this a completely isolated colony? Was this like in the back end of nowhere and the Briori Central Authority just didn't care?
Yeah.
Next thing, were these Briori pirates or criminals? They wanted disposable labor for nefarious purposes.
Yeah, maybe.
Were carrying it out in a clandestine manner. So when they were all killed and the ship destroyed and nobody knew about it or cared about it, those are my two thoughts.
I wonder if they had done this on a bunch of different planets and that the slaves were used to sort of mine for resources, and maybe they didn't find anything interesting on this planet, so they just went, screw you guys, you can stay there. And they just pulled out. Oh,
so it was like economically unfeasible to go back, so they just didn't care.
Yeah, because they never really said they were used as slaves, but they never said for what.
Yeah. Or maybe it was terraforming, and they didn't have enough resources to go back,
Or maybe whatever they were doing on that planet ultimately caused that trinimbic interference or whatever it was. And then it was like, well, this planet is ruined, so they moved on.
Good point.
I can't believe that this group of humans could have defeated the entire race. It doesn't make any sense. So they must have just moved on.
Yeah.
It just went, you guys will die off. Who cares?
Yeah, so maybe it wasn't really a colony. It was just a small mining company whose ship was destroyed.
That's my headcanon.
That's a good one, yeah.
Thank you.
I was leaning towards either illegal, clandestine, something that wouldn't spark a bigger response from the Briori High Command.
Right.
And my final point. Does Janeway have any kind of obligation to stay behind there and protect these humans. I know it would ruin the show. If they'd stayed, it would have been a very short season. I think it seems like these people are taken there against their will. They've built this society, but it doesn't seem to have warp capability, and they don't seem to have a lot of defenses against other ships coming in. To me, it would seem like it would be an imperative for Janeway, as a representative of Starfleet and the Federation, to stay and protect this colony. I mean, you can make the argument it's not part of the Federation, but it hasn't had a chance. It's still a human colony.
Well, they don't seem like they're in any real danger. And again, that weird interference on the planet meant they couldn't really be scanned. They couldn't be found there. And if they were happy, I don't know. I mean, you mentioned that thing earlier of we should have allowed people to make the choice to come with.
Yeah.
That would have made more sense, I think. Her number one duty is still the people on her ship. So I don't know that she's obligated to change and now have to stay and protect this planet.
Yeah.
I don't quite see that. But she knows that they're there, and she could tell them, hey, when we get back, maybe we could send some other ships out here to help you evolve faster or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I personally feel that there is something of an obligation to protect these people.
I hate to tell you, we don't care about these people. We only showed one of them. I mean, we showed two, but only this guy talks.
Yeah.
It's just, this episode just isn't about that, which is crazy.
I know, the most important bit, and it isn't.
It should be about that, but It is not about that.
Yeah, I feel there was so much left on the table here. But yeah, at the end of the day, it would have been a very short season if they'd just stayed.
Yeah, like that wormhole episode, if they'd just gotten back.
Right.
That would have been more like a modern show. We just did 8 episodes and we were done.
Yep. And one final overanalysis point. So there's the Morse code signal beeping out in a radio frequency. And we don't know what the frequency is. Do you think Voyager, wouldn't they be scanning for that kind of thing? I mean, Harry makes a comment about it's not in the usual band.
Yeah. Well, because it's too slow.
Yeah.
So what you're hearing is so old that it's maybe not worth it.
Yeah, okay. That would be a good reason not to.
Yeah, because it's moving at the speed of light or whatever he says.
Yeah, so it could be decades, centuries old by the time you hear it.
Right.
But if you were in a system or near a system where it could be just hours old and you get a radio signal, that could be interesting. But I suppose if you're not using subspace radio, then you're probably a pre-warp technology.
And we don't care about your music.
Yeah.
And your farm reports. That's what used to be on AM radio when I was a kid. Yeah.
But I would worry that, let's say you were a sophisticated race.
Yeah.
Or there was a ship that had crashed and all they could do was get an AM or a lower frequency non-subspace transmitter working. You could be missing people going, we're crashed here. We can't get our warp drive working. Help. It seems like something you should be looking for.
Well, it seems like something that you would have the computer looking for.
Yeah.
Yes. And your AI would determine whether or not it was something or nothing.
Look for signals that aren't natural in origin across the spectrum and just flag them up and say, this could be something.
That's a good use of machine learning.
A scripted task to look for it.
A cron job. We're back to the cron jobs.
Yeah. We haven't had one of those in a while.
No, we haven't.
And I think that wraps up my overanalysis.
All right.
Over to you.
Well, I don't normally like to rewrite episodes of these shows that we watch, but I think we really missed the boat here.
Sometimes you're a 180 from me. I love rewriting the episodes.
That's true. You would. And renaming them. We so leaned into this Amelia Earhart thing that we lost sight of what the episode ended up being about.
Yes.
And if we had only spent like the cold open or something with Amelia Earhart, that would have been one thing. But we didn't. We lost half the episode, more than half the episode to it.
Yeah.
I would have rather seen them find the SOS signal and the plane, ultimately discover that the people on the planet had descended from the people who were stolen, including Amelia Earhart, like maybe there were pictures or something.
Right.
But I would rather that than having her exist and come to life in the episode. We wasted so much time with her.
And the conspiracy theories.
And Fred, the stupid guy with the gun, when we could have leaned into Janeway's concern about the entire ship wanting to stay behind, or what you're talking about, like learning more about the planet and the cities and the people there, and then we have a dilemma of what to do about that.
Having some people who wanted to join them, yeah.
she had that like one incredible moment of doubt, followed by the great reveal at the end.
Yeah.
We focused on the wrong thing. I don't understand. I'm so disappointed in this episode because the end was so good.
Yeah.
And the first 30 minutes was so stupid.
I can't even call it goofy. Silly.
Give up on the Amelia Earhart thing and show us the cities. It's such a glaring gap when you watch this episode that we go from, we have these great cities and such an awesome place to live, to Janeway saying, wow, those cities were great. What a great place to live. And you're like, what? When do we do that? That was so, oh my God, that was so stupid. The whole episode is so weird. And what a weird way to start season 2.
Agreed.
I don't know. Is that overanalysis? It was terrible. I don't know what, this episode is crazy. Women in the future, not much to say. I mean, I like the little connection thing they had going between Janeway and Earhart, but it almost wrote itself. You didn't really have to show it. I mean, all you needed was Janeway to say, you were one of my inspirations, and that could have been the end of it. But again, I just don't think we should have brought her back to life.
I kind of like that bit.
About bringing her back?
Yeah. You know, it's still one of those mysteries. I mean, the other thing is I would have had Jimmy Hoffa as one of the people that they defrosted as well.
Oh, that would have been funny. No, I'm saying I don't mind that they played that as part of the story. I just don't think we should have wasted time bringing her back to life.
Yeah.
I think if we had like found the airplane and we would have gone, oh my God, they got Amelia Earhart here.
Yeah.
And then they could have met the people and moved into a different part of the story. And we could have found out that, yes, that is what happened to Amelia Earhart. And now she has a whole different history on this planet.
Right.
That would have been fine. I just think bringing her back to life was too distracting for us to have a good story.
Yeah.
We were too focused on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not on making a good story. And then we ended with such a bang. It was like, what a wasted opportunity for a good episode.
Right.
Although maybe I'm just overly focused on it because of that sort of leadership moment. I really related to it.
Yeah.
And that just made me long for a better episode.
No, I don't think you are, because I haven't heard your opinion on it until we record. And it pretty much lines up with what I thought, which is it's an interesting episode dealing with a leadership problem and Janeway having to stress about who really does want to be with her. And then the reveal at the end that, yeah, they are all committed to this journey.
Yeah.
But getting there had so many silly parts.
Yeah.
I think the overall story was good.
Yeah.
I think if you rework this, you could end up with a fantastic episode. I would keep Amelia Earhart in because I kind of like the idea, but I wouldn't have made it such a silly focus and the silly love story part of it.
I would absolutely not have brought any of those people back to life.
Yeah.
I would have said they were all found. The stuff we talked about were how it evolved because they all had to work together and build their own cities and build their own new culture. Yeah. All that stuff I think would have been very Star Trek-y, very Gene Roddenberry, right?
Oh,
it could have been really good.
Yeah.
But no. So moving into Janeway's leadership corner, we already talked about the leadership stuff from this episode that I was interested in. So I'll just go right to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. There's not a lot of nuance in our rating. So what is your rating?
It just squeaks in a thumbs up.
Interesting.
My hands just made it into the vertical position. I give it a thumbs up because it did have some good moments. There was some good bones to a story. The ending was really good.
Yeah.
Like I said, like the last 15 minutes, great. The rest of it, it just fell under silly. It's a shame because there was some great concepts and some great story bones there. And this is what you lead off the second season with? Really?
Yeah. That's the hardest part to believe, really.
Yeah. So, did I enjoy it? Yes. Would I watch it again? Probably.
This episode is not what I expected it to be. Because I agree with you, silly is the right word. It was so silly for a long time. When they first woke up the 37's and Fred was stomping around pointing a gun, I kept thinking of that episode of TNG, where they find the people who paid money to be frozen and go into the future. Yes. And the guy was like, I want to check my bank account and let's check the stock market.
Right.
Everybody on the Enterprise is like, I'm sorry, what? The what? So I was sort of thinking, oh my God, is this what this episode is going to be? But it wasn't. That's not what the episode turned into. I thought the first episode was sort of boring and the end was great. So, does that average it out to neutral? I don't know what to give it. As we try to figure out why is this the first episode of the season? If we think about some of the first episodes from Deep Space Nine of the different seasons, they start off with a bang.
Oh, yeah.
This is not a bang. But if what they really wanted to do is show the commitment of the crew to this journey, then I think they did that, right?
Yes.
They really hit that hard at the end. The trouble was the journey to get to that part was not great. I don't know what to give it. I think...
Wow.
I almost feel bad giving it a thumbs up because I really thought the rest of the episode was bad.
Uh-huh.
But I thought the end was so good that neutral seems unfair. What's in between neutral and thumbs up?
Having a thumb at like 270 degrees of almost an up, but still...
I will say slight thumbs up. This is a mediocre episode of Star Trek until the end. And the end is fantastic.
So you're saying that if there was a slight breeze, your thumb would go down into the neutral position?
Yes, that is what I'm saying. If that plane that they think is Amelia Earhart's is really Amelia Earhart's, it's going to put this back to neutral. Oh, man. That's why. Why do they do this to me? I want this episode to be better.
Oh, dear.
Well, that wraps up Season 2, Episode 1.
Not the most auspicious start.
Not really. Come back next week for Episode 2. Hopefully it will be better. Although, I see it's some K's on. I see the sunburned people in the thumbnail, so we'll see if that's good. But anyway, come back next week for Episode 2.
This is a weird one because I could do that episode without rewatching it.
Oh, there are no episodes I could do without rewatching.
Really?
I do not remember any of them well enough.
Oh.
There are some really impactful ones that I remember.
Yeah.
What happens at the end.
Yep.
But I couldn't repeat what the episode is to you. Not like TNG, which I watched, many of those episodes many times.
I mean, some, it's because, that I love them. Other ones, it's like, why do I remember this episode?
I don't know. Your memory works in mysterious ways. You remember weird things, but not what you should remember.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of people are like
the
that.
The story of my life. Ask me stupid trivia and I will tell you about it. But something important? Nah, gone.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot of stuff. Like, even when you tell me something that we used to do 20 years ago, I'm like, really?
Was that me?
I'm just trying to keep up with today. That's the most I can do.
Indeed.
All right, let's move on. And I will give you my wrap-up info by saying, in the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own over-analysis of this or any episode, or if you want to say something nice, you can email us at rebingeit@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us on any of the social medias at ReBingeit. We are on YouTube, Instagram, Threads, the thing that used to be called Twitter. And we have a Facebook group that we're a part of, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
And I'd encourage people to go and join the group because it's kind of fun and there's a lot of Star Trek nerds on there.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us on the ReBinge. Thanks for joining us on the ReBinge.
Were you going to say Deep Space Nine?
Yes.
I saw it on your face. I saw you wanted to say Deep Space Nine.
Thanks for joining us on the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.